It's one of the coldest weeks of the year, and we spotted several homeless people living in tents.
In winter, temperatures in Chicago plummet to 0 degrees or below. You're sitting in your heated home right now, maybe wrapped in a blanket, maybe sipping something warm. Meanwhile, someone is preparing to sleep outside tonight in negative 7 degrees Celsius, and they're going to survive. How is that even possible? Most of us panic when our heating breaks for a few hours. But what happens when you have no heating at all? No walls, no roof? What happens when the concrete beneath you is colder than your refrigerator and the only thing between you and death is knowledge most people will never need? This isn't a story about giving up. This is a story about engineering solutions from trash, turning physics into survival, and refusing to die when everything says you should. The shelter paradox, why they choose the cold. Here's something that doesn't make sense at first glance. Chicago has shelters, warm shelters with beds and heating, so why would anyone choose to freeze? Outside instead of going inside? The answer is simpler and more heartbreaking than you'd think. All the shelters are full, but even when they're not full, there's another problem. People steal from you in shelters. Unfortunately, some people are on drugs. They're not safe. Think about that for a second. The safe option isn't actually safe. The issue comes down to protecting belongings. While most homeless individuals don't own much, the few items they do have are absolutely essential for survival. A sleeping bag rated for winter temperatures can mean the difference between life and death. A reliable tent provides crucial protection from wind and snow. Even basic supplies like extra socks and blankets are precious when you're living on the streets. The harsh reality? Leaving these items unattended while staying at a shelter often means returning to find everything gone, stolen or thrown away during city cleanups. One homeless man in Chicago put it perfectly. My tent and sleeping bag are worth more to me than one night of warmth. He'd rather brave negative temperatures with his survival gear than spend a few nights in a shelter only to come back to nothing. After all, what good is a warm bed for a week if you're left with no protection for the rest of winter? For Black homeless individuals, there's an additional calculation. Which shelters feel safe? Which ones have you heard stories about? Which staff members see you as human versus a problem to be managed? These calculations happen in seconds every single time, so they stay outside and they survive. But how? The tent, your first line of defense. That's never enough. Most homeless individuals rely heavily on their tents as their primary shield against the elements. Tents serve as homes for countless people living on the streets, but these aren't the cozy camping setups you'd find at REI. Most are secondhand or salvaged with worn fabric and missing parts that make them far less effective against brutal winter conditions. The biggest challenge? The ground itself. Those spots under bridges or concrete overpasses that seem like they'd offer protection actually work against staying warm. Concrete and steel act like giant ice packs, sucking away body heat from anyone trying to sleep above them. Think about that. The ground is literally draining the life out of you while you sleep. That's why you'll notice homeless encampments often have tents covered in layers of plastic tarps, old blankets, and whatever insulating materials people can find. Each added layer helps trap a tiny bit more warmth inside. One resourceful woman covered her tent with discarded moving blankets and bubble wrap. Not exactly glamorous, but those air bubbles create surprisingly good insulation. Even with all these creative solutions, a basic tent setup might only raise the inside temperature 10 to 15 degrees above the outside air. Do the math. If it's negative 7 Celsius, outside, that tent might be 3 or 4 degrees inside, still below freezing, still potentially deadly. With temperatures dropping well below zero in Chicago, people need more than just a tent to survive. The blanket collection, why 5 isn't enough. Living outside in winter takes more than just 1 or 2 blankets. It requires an entire collection of them. Yes, dragging around 5 or 6 blankets might look like someone's preparing for the world's most extreme sleepover, but each layer plays a vital role in survival. The homeless often get these blankets through donations or find them at thrift stores for a few dollars each. Some folks even joke that they could spot a good blanket from 3 blocks away, a skill that becomes pretty handy when your life depends on it. These blankets aren't just for sleeping either. They become wall insulation, makeshift curtains, and even impromptu winter coats when needed. The real trick is keeping them dry. A wet blanket in freezing temperatures is about as useful as a chocolate teapot. That's why you'll often see homeless people carrying their blankets in plastic bags or wrapped in tarps, protecting these precious warmth keepers from snow and rain. But here's the brutal truth. Even with a mountain of blankets and a tent, the cold of a concrete floor still seeps through. Your body heat gets sucked into the earth beneath you faster than you can generate it. So what do? Your first thought might be, build a fire. But that's actually a more complicated solution than it seems. Fire, the obvious solution that can kill you. Starting a fire might seem like the obvious answer to staying warm, but it's actually one of the riskiest choices for homeless individuals. Most homeless communities are packed close together, not exactly ideal conditions for an open flame. Tents are basically giant matches waiting to catch fire. Synthetic materials like nylon can melt and cause severe burns in seconds. In Minneapolis last winter, 3 tent fires broke out in a single week, destroying not just the tents where the fire started, but spreading to neighboring shelters as well. During the day, some people might carefully build a small fire in a controlled area away from their sleeping space. But at night, when temperatures hit their lowest point, having an open flame near flammable blankets and tents is playing with disaster. One gust of wind, one accidental kick while sleeping, and everything goes up in flames. As one Streetwise veteran puts it, being homeless is bad enough without adding Human Torch to the resume. So, fire is out. The shelters are full or unsafe. The tent and blankets aren't enough on their own. What's left? This is where homeless people become engineers. The clay pot heater, science fair, project turned lifesaver. The clay pot heater sounds like something from a high school science fair, but it's actually an ingenious survival tool that's helped countless people make it through brutal winter nights. The setup is surprisingly simple. A few tea light candles, a basic clay flower pot, and a metal plate to hold it all together. While it won't turn a freezing tent into a cozy beach resort, it provides enough warmth to keep someone alive when temperatures nosedive below zero. The science behind it is pretty clever. Clay flower pots are amazing at absorbing and slowly releasing heat, kind of like those fancy heat-storing bricks in old European homes, just much smaller and cheaper. The candles warm up the pot, and the clay gradually releases that heat into the surrounding air. Some folks have gotten creative with their setups, stacking 2 pots of different sizes to create better heat distribution. One homeless man in Boston managed to raise the temperature in a small tent by almost 15 degrees using just 3 tea lights and a medium-sized pot. Do that math again. -7 Celsius becomes 3 degrees. Still cold, but no longer deadly. Safety is crucial, though. These heaters need to sit on something that won't catch fire, and they can't be knocked over. The good news? Tea light candles are cheap. About $2 for a pack of 20, and they burn for around 4 hours each. A few dollars worth of candles can provide warmth through the longest winter nights. Plus, unlike an open flame, these heaters are much less likely to turn your temporary home into an impromptu bonfire. Some homeless communities have even started teaching Clay Pot Heater 101 classes, showing newcomers how to set them up safely. As one instructor joked, it's probably the only heating system where you can grow tomatoes in summer and stay warm in winter. Talk about multitasking. But clay pot heaters aren't the only DIY solution people have come up with. The tin can heater. From dumpster to lifesaver. Another popular method involves something you might find in your recycling bin right now. The tin can heater transforms everyday trash into a vital heat source that can mean the difference between freezing and surviving. A large coffee can or food can works best. The design is surprisingly straightforward. Punch 10 to 20 small holes around the top and bottom for airflow. Add a small platform inside, like a tuna can or metal lid, to elevate your heat source, and you've created a portable radiator. For fuel, most people use either tea light candles, which burn 3 to 4 hours each, or a small alcohol burner made from a cat food can filled with denatured alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, 70% or higher. The alcohol burner puts out more heat, but only burns for about 2 hours per fill. A tea light setup usually needs 2 to 3 candles to be effective, while a single alcohol burner can do the job. The metal conducts and radiates heat quickly. Within 15 minutes, these heaters can raise the temperature in a small tent by 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Safety features are crucial. This holes need to be evenly spaced about 1 inch apart to prevent the flame from going out. The heater must sit on a flat, fireproof surface. Rocks or metal washers work well as spacers underneath to ensure proper airflow. One longtime user in Minneapolis found that using a slightly larger can as an outer shell creates a double wall effect that helps distribute heat more evenly and protects against accidental burns. The outer can doesn't get as hot to the touch. A veteran living on the streets perfected his design using 3 tea lights and 2 cans, the inner one for the heat source and a larger outer can with holes only at the top. His setup burns for about 12 hours using 9 tea lights changed every 4 hours, providing crucial warmth through the longest winter nights. Think about the engineering that went into that. Trial and error, experimentation, innovation, all while fighting to survive. But whether you're using the fanciest double can setup or a simple single can, heater staying warm isn't just about generating heat, it's about keeping it close to your body. Layering, building a personal fortress against winter. When it comes to survival in extreme cold, proper layering is like building a personal fortress against winter. The first rule, cotton is the enemy. It soaks up sweat and stays wet, which is why experienced homeless individuals hunt for wool and synthetic materials at donation centers and thrift stores. The base layer needs to be thin and moisture-wicking. Old running shirts or thermal underwear work perfectly. Next comes the insulating layer. Sweaters, fleece jackets, or wool shirts trap warm air close to the body. The outer layer needs to block wind and rain. Even a cheap plastic poncho over a coat makes a huge difference. Most people don't realize that you lose up to 20% of your body heat through your head, another 30% through your feet, and surprisingly, about 15% through your hands. That's 65% of your body heat. Escaping through extremities. That's why you'll often see homeless people wearing multiple hats, usually a thinner one covered by a thicker wool hat. Socks follow the same principle. Thin synthetic socks underneath, thick wool socks on top. One clever trick that's spread through homeless communities is putting plastic bags between sock layers. It looks ridiculous, but creates an amazing waterproof barrier that keeps feet dry and warm. The real pros have mastered the art of creating what they call dead air spaces, small pockets of air trapped between layers that act as natural insulation. Wearing slightly oversized outer layers helps create these spaces. A jacket that's one size too big can actually keep you warmer than a perfectly fitted one, as long as you have enough layers underneath to trap air effectively. As one street-smart survivor puts it, fashion goes out the window when it's 20 below. I'd wear a clown suit if it kept me warm. For Black homeless individuals, there's an additional tension. Looking too homeless can attract police attention or harassment. Looking too put together can mean losing access to services because people assume you don't need help. The balance is delicate, dangerous, and exhausting, but even the best layering system needs help from the inside. Fuel for the furnace, the science of staying warm. Through food, your body is like a furnace, and in freezing temperatures, you need to keep that furnace running efficiently. Most homeless individuals have learned to maximize every opportunity to get warm drinks. Many fast food restaurants and coffee shops will give out free hot water, which becomes a lifeline during winter days. Some people keep plastic thermoses they found or been given, filling them up whenever possible to have hot drinks available throughout the day. The science of staying warm through food is fascinating. Your body actually generates 10% more heat when digesting food. That's why eating small amounts frequently works better than one large meal. Complex carbohydrates like oatmeal, bread, and pasta are particularly valuable because they digest slowly, creating a longer-lasting warming effect. One experienced street survivor carries packets of instant oatmeal everywhere. It's like carrying little heating packs in your pocket, he says, except these ones you can eat. Staying hydrated might seem counterintuitive when you're trying to stay warm. After all, who wants to drink cold water in freezing weather? But dehydration makes you more susceptible to hypothermia because your body can't regulate its temperature as effectively. Some folks have learned to add a pinch of salt to their water when possible. It helps retain body heat and replace electrolytes lost through shivering. The salt trick came from an old fisherman who ended up homeless in Seattle. He remembered it from his days out on cold ocean waters. The most resourceful individuals have mapped out their entire day around staying warm through food and drinks. They know which places offer free coffee in the mornings, which soup kitchens serve hot meals at lunch, and which coffee shops don't mind if you sit for a while with a single cup of hot water. As one woman puts it, winter survival is a full-time job, and hot drinks are my paycheck. The system, combining everything to stay alive. Living homeless in Chicago, winter at 19.4 degrees Fahrenheit, -7 Celsius, requires combining all these strategies: the right shelter, proper heating methods, careful layering, smart eating habits. Each method alone might not be enough, but together they create a system that helps people survive even in the harshest conditions. Let's walk through a typical night for someone living on the streets in Chicago during winter. 5 p.m. Sunset approaches. Temperature starts dropping from 20 degrees to 15, then 10. You need to get to your spot before dark, before the good locations are taken, before it becomes too dangerous to move around. 6 p.m. You've set up your tent under a bridge. You've arranged your blankets, 6 of them, all dry, all carefully layered. You've placed cardboard underneath to create a barrier between you and the concrete that's trying to steal your heat. 7 p.m. You light your tin can heater, 3 tea lights. You've calculated they'll burn for 4 hours. At 11 p.m., you'll need to replace them. You've set a mental alarm because sleeping through that replacement could mean hypothermia. 8 p.m. You're wearing 4 layers on your torso, 3 pairs of socks with plastic bags in between, 2 hats, and gloves you found last week. You look ridiculous. You're alive. 9 p.m. You eat your oatmeal packet mixed with hot water from the coffee shop. Your body temperature rises slightly as digestion kicks in. 10 p.m. You're wrapped in all 6 blankets inside a tent that's barely warmer than the air outside, next to a heater made from a coffee can and birthday candles, wearing more clothes than you've ever owned, and you're still cold, but you're not dying. 11 p.m. You wake up. Replace the tea lights. Check that everything is still dry. Check that the heater hasn't tipped. Check that you can still feel your toes. 2 a.m. Replace the tea lights again. This is the coldest part of the night. This is when people die. Not you, not tonight. 5 a.m. You've made it. Sunrise is coming. Temperature will rise from 12 degrees to 15, then 20. You'll pack everything up, store it safely, and head to the library when it opens for warmth, Wi-Fi, and a place to exist for a few hours. You'll do it all again tomorrow night, and the night after that, and the night after that. The invisible brilliance. Here's what most people will never understand about homelessness in winter. The intelligence required to survive would impress any engineer. The logistics would challenge any operations manager. The problem solving would humble any entrepreneur. These aren't people who gave up. These are people who turned flower pots into heaters, coffee cans into radiators, and bubble wrap into insulation. These are people who understand thermodynamics, heat transfer, moisture management, and caloric efficiency better than most college graduates. They've mastered the art of creating warmth from nothing, using physics and chemistry and pure human ingenuity to stay alive in conditions that would kill most of us within hours. For Black homeless individuals in Chicago, there are additional layers of complexity. Which neighborhoods are safe to set up in? Which police officers will let you be versus hassle you or worse? Which passersby will offer help versus call the cops? Which shelters have you heard are safer for people who look like you? Every decision carries weight. Every calculation includes race. Every night includes risks most people will never face. The question we should be asking, the real question, isn't how do homeless people stay warm in Chicago at 19.4 degrees? The question is, why do we live in a society where people need to become thermal engineers just to survive the night? Why do we have more empty homes than homeless people, yet people are turning flower pots into heaters under bridges? Why do we praise innovation in Silicon Valley but ignore the life-saving innovations happening every night on our streets? Someone figured out how to raise tent temperatures 15 degrees using candles and clay. Someone engineered a double-walled tin can heater that burns for 12 hours. Someone discovered that plastic bags between sock layers create waterproof insulation. This is genius. This is survival. This is humanity refusing to die even when everything says it should, and we walk past it every single day without seeing it. The truth about survival. Living homeless in Chicago winter isn't just possible. For thousands of people, it's reality. It requires knowledge most people will never need, skills most people will never develop, calculations most people will never make, courage most people will never have to summon. It requires turning trash into treasure, physics into survival, and desperation into innovation. It requires refusing to freeze when everyone else has warmth, refusing to give up when giving up would be easier, refusing to die when dying would be simpler. That's how Black homeless people stay warm in Chicago at 19.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Not through luck, not through charity alone. Through intelligence, resourcefulness, community knowledge, and an unbreakable will to survive. Through clay pot heaters and tin can radiators. Through 6 blankets and plastic bag insulation. Through strategic layering and oatmeal packets. Through knowing which coffee shop gives free hot water and which shelter is safe, and which bridge provides the best wind protection. Through a system of survival that's more complex, more brilliant, and more heartbreaking than most people will ever understand. They survive because they refuse not to. And tomorrow night, when the temperature drops to 19.4 degrees again, they'll do it all over.